rock may be stronger. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We come back to Cover Killer Nation's favorite albums, and tonight we need to discuss a year. We need to discuss the year 2006. Yes, these are albums that next year are going to be 10 years old, but I chose this year specifically because of some of the keynote releases that are among my favorites, and also the fact that prior to YouTube, I'm constructing lists. Yeah, my friend and I did this. In fact, we did it in 2005 as well. We may get into some of those albums in the future. However, in 2006, there was definitely an explosion in the amount in which we both personally listened to, and it resulted in what would soon become the top 35 album of the year list right here on the Cover Killer Nation channel. So let's go back to 2006, 9 years ago, whenever I was but a wee lad of 22, and discuss 4 albums, or more, that were great from that year. We begin our journey with Monotheist by Celtic Frost, which actually made my album of the year list at number 8 in 2006. I probably would revise that today, but let's not worry about doing all of that. It was the last album under the Celtic Frost banner. After this, the band dissolved, and Tom and some of his other cohorts in crime formed Triptykon, and they have delivered us 2 phenomenal albums ever since then. This was an album that really caused a lot of great buzz within the heavy metal industry, and especially with Celtic Frost fans and fans of just darkened heavy metal to begin with, because this was a very dank, a very bleak album, one that certainly had all of the semblances of just doom and gloom, but at the same time sounded so evil and so sinister. In fact, during the old blog TV days here on the Cover Killer Nation channel, one of these tracks off of this album, Synagogue Satanée, was actually used for a short time as an introduction for the show. However, this was more than just an album based around its atmosphere. It was also based around the lyricism. It was based around the construction. This was an album that kind of took the idea of a traditional Celtic Frost, death fest, and transformed it into one where the surroundings feel like they match the overall theme. The overall tone on this disc is one of bleak darkness, and it works so very well on songs such as Ossibis Mi Baldath, just to name one. And then Ground, of course, was a song that actually got traction enough where I heard it on a college radio station, which was really, really freaking cool. This was an album that really, for a lot of us, felt that there were great, great heights ahead for Celtic Frost. They were going to continue within this direction, and it was going to lead to a great career resurgence. But, of course, the band dissolved. But Triptykon has certainly kind of picked off where Monotheist left off, and has just produced gold ever since. Secondly, we have Reinkaos by Dissection, which is not a universally beloved Dissection album amid fans, or even just heavy metal fans in general, mainly because this was an album that sort of went a little bit further away from their traditional black metal roots and experimented a little bit more with melodic black metal, some would say with a Gothenburg influence, but I hear a little bit more in the way of traditional heavy metal in this album, and I really, really like it. This is one where the occult imagery and the lyricism had a very distinct reality to them, considering their references to the misanthropic Luciferian order, not to mention also some of the references that you get to science ideas, such as string theory. So there's a lot of different things that are embodied within this lyricism. Now, unfortunately, John from Dissection, who was quintessential to the band, opted to take his own life a couple of months after the release of this album. So that was his choice, but this album kind of remains in infamy in his absence. It's one that really has a lot of divided fan base to it, considering many people were clamoring for the next Storm of the Light's Bane, either that or the Somberlane. And instead got Reinkaos, which was a little bit of a reinvention of the section that would have been cool to see if it would have continued, or if they would have gone back to that style. Really, really strong album. I think of songs rather, such as Black Dragon or Dark Mother Divine, and immediately just want to turn them on and just listen to them and look up lyrics that I probably already know and just simply scream them at the top of my lungs. This is one of those albums that has that influence on you, so even though you decide that you don't like it, there are still elements that you really enjoy. This is kind of an unsung hero and a forgotten gem. Check this one out. Back whenever we constructed these early lists, my best friend and I liked to really give an honor to a band that's first album really seemed to showcase brilliance. And in 2006, this album was Nord by Year of No Light. Now, this is a post-rock, post-metal, atmospheric sludge, whatever you want to call them, band from France. And what really impressed me about this album were the profound instrumentals that were contained on it. This is an album that doesn't have much in the way of lyricism, but some does exist. But the instrumentalization and just the overall atmosphere that is contained within each of them is just absolutely breathtaking, to the point that it seemed like the fitting and most perfect backdrop to some words that I myself had written. And it was actually to the point where I combined the two together, and I believe I have it posted. If you see a link somewhere to my left or right, check out, actually, the result. This is a band that really showcases where post-metal and post-rock were really going in 2006. This was before we had bands such as Alcé to really take that idea to the next level. We had some early contenders that were really doing some things. I'm looking at bands such as ISIS, for example, and I don't mean, don't flag me. But at the same time, Year of No Light emerged as this immediate contender, but then nobody really took the ball and ran with it. Their next album didn't come for 4 years, so we had a long wait between discs, and I feel that this is an album that's really criminally underrated, and definitely was one of the best albums of 2006. In fact, whenever I look at my list, it made it at number 16. For a debut album to make the list at that time was a hell of an impressive effort, and this album certainly has that. So you may wonder who won the Album of the Year race in 2006. The answer to that is more complicated than you think, because there were a lot of horses in this race. There were about 4 horses in this race near the end. It was probably one of the closest contended Album of the Years that I can think of throughout the history that I've been doing this. However, the winner went to Still by Wolverine. Now, Wolverine is a progressive metal / progressive rock band that certainly has a lot of great tendencies. They're a very emotionally driven band that has fantastic lyricism, ones that really showcase a lot of questioning, ones that really showcase a lot of driven human element, a lot of humanity. Think of what would happen if a band such as Pain of Salvation got a little bit softer and was touching the borders of progressive rock a little bit more than escalating up into progressive metal, and kind of take out some of the extravagancies that you hear in a Pain of Salvation album, and you really will understand what Still by Wolverine is all about. This is also an album that contains the highly critical and huge panning of George W. Bush in the song Liar on the Mount. This track really pulls no punches, does it very, very kindly, don't get me wrong. The lyricism is not as direct as you would see in perhaps, a track by Onslaught that happened right around the same year, if I remember the band correctly. But at the same time, man oh man, whenever you include the clips like they did, which were right of George W. Bush, it definitely paints a picture of what 2006 was all about. Many people at this point in time were just absolutely tired of the man, and really felt that America needed some sort of change or wake-up call. Whether or not you believe we've gotten that is really up to you, but this song is definitely one that makes the album for me, because it mirrored a lot of my own sentiments, and it was a song that was just curiously placed within just phenomenal music that I was already enjoying, to the point where it was a contender for Album of the Year, and then this song came on and kind of pushed things over the top. But that's not to say that the other albums were slouches. For example, Communic's Waves of Visual Decay. How's this for a bonus for you? Waves of Visual Decay was a phenomenal album. Think about what would happen if you took all of the best elements of bands such as Mercenary, or especially Nevermore, and extend it and give it a progressive metal charm, and bam, you have Communic. Toss in a little Opeth here and there if you really want to. That's really up to you. This is a witch's brew of just fantastic music, and actually their first album, Conspiracy of Mind, was one that not only made the list in 2005, they fucking won the whole thing. Waves of Visual Decay came in second, even though it was the better album comparative to Conspiracy of Mind. And the reason for this is it just took all of the best moments of Conspiracy of Mind and elevated it to a new level. These tracks are very lengthy. Tracks such as Fooled by the Serpent will easily eclipse the 8-minute mark, and all of that time doesn't feel wasted at all. It all feels extremely, extremely well used, and it's something where there's a bit of a hypnosis that happens with this music in the fact that it just drives you to keep on listening. And their main man is not only the vocalist of this group, but also the main guitar player, so all of the fantastic things that you're hearing, both vocally and with the guitar work, is all him. So it almost seems like a really self-centered project, but fuck that. That's fantastic. I'm happy as shit that that's what it is, because it's awesome. It's a really, really strong album, and it just is one of those complete discs that really showcase a lot of lasting value. This is an album I can easily pick up any day of the week, throw on, and it will take me right back to whenever we listen to it for the first time. And I'll, every so often, find something a little bit new about it that I really enjoy. Other albums that were in contention that year were also Novembre's Materia, which is a fantastic album, and also Ashes Against the Grain by Agalloch. 4 big horses in that race. And Iron Maiden released an album in 2006 entitled A Matter of Life and Death, but I reviewed that. In fact, I did a whole Iron Maiden discography. I almost said Metallica. I did one of those too, so why don't you check those out while you have the opportunity. And then we just talked about the band Anata in the first episode of 10 Awesome Songs That You May Not Know. The song that I mentioned, Downward Spiral into Madness, was off an album entitled The Conductor's Departure, which came out in 2006, and actually was on the list in number 6. That's a lot of fucking 6s. There were also great albums from Catatonia, Amorphous. There was an Enslaved album. Solitude Aeternus came back with their first album in a long time with Alone, which was a great disc. Just a lot of great things that happened in 2006, and that just includes some of the ones that made it to the Album of the Year list. There were many, many others that were close, but just didn't quite make it in. Well, thanks for watching this episode of Cover Killer Nation's favorite albums. If you would, in the comments below, talk about some of your favorite albums off of this list, or just in general, and what you think the theme for next week should be. This is certainly one where we're going to get to a lot of those suggestions further on down the line, as I do have a couple of ideas for the next few weeks in mind. However, those are all going to be very helpful whenever it comes to after that, considering I have such a wealth of music that I consider to be either a favorite or ones that I respect a lot. So definitely do that. Like and comment the video, subscribe. Please subscribe and share with all of your friends. Everybody needs to hear great music, and hopefully these albums will give you some things to check out from the year 2006 that were particularly fantastic. I'm Cover Killer Nation. I thank you. I need a shower and a shave, but I don't need another ronk. This is really awesome. I like these notepads too. They're pretty cool. Bleh.